Don't forget to subscribe, give us a big thumbs up, and hit that little bell icon like you're Casemiro smashing a late tackle in injury time. Yes, it's free, unlike Old Trafford parking, and let's be honest, we all need the algorithm gods on our side more than Manchester United need a midfield. Right then, let's get to it. Pour yourself a proper cuppa, because Marcus Rashford is staying put at Manchester United, and that means something. A lot, in fact. Even if it doesn't come with a trophy, yet. It's been a whirlwind, hasn't it? 1 minute he's posting cryptic emojis on Instagram like he's 19 again and hasn't scored in 6 weeks. The next minute, he's back in the headlines because someone's cousin's barber heard that PSG were sniffing around with Qatari checkbooks. But no. He's staying. And let's take a moment to unpack what that actually means, for him, for Manchester United, and for those of us watching, popcorn in hand, as this club continues to live out its post-Fergie telenovela. Marcus Rashford, Wythenshawe-born, Carrington-polished, the lad who made his debut under Louis van Gaal like a bolt of Mancunian lightning, has decided to not run off to sunnier climes. Not to Paris, not to Madrid, not even to North London. He's staying at United. In the age of super agents, mega deals, and exits disguised as new challenges, that's saying something. This isn't just a football decision. It's a cultural one. A statement. Let's not beat around the bush. Rashford had a stinker of a season last year. That's not a controversial take, it's backed by stats and eye tests alike. 8 Premier League goals in 36 appearances. 8. That's barely one for every £35,000 in his weekly wage. And yet, amid the rumours of discontent, tactical confusion, and a manager looking perpetually one bad press conference away from a breakdown, Rashford has chosen to fight. Now, that could mean two things. Either he genuinely believes in the club's project, which, let's face it, has all the consistency of a British summer, or he's looking around and thinking, where else am I going to get to be the main man? And he might have a point. PSG. They've already got a small army of attackers and a manager who changes systems more than Rashford changes hairstyles. Real Madrid. They're stacking more talent than a Marvel crossover, and Jude Bellingham has already become Spain's adopted son. Bayern Munich. Nice idea, but they've already got Leroy Sane doing a similar thing with more German efficiency. So maybe, just maybe, United is the only place where Marcus Rashford gets to be Marcus Rashford, unfiltered, untouchable, and occasionally untraceable when it comes to tracking back. But credit where it's due, Rashford is more than just his form. He's become something of an institution at the club. When things go wrong, the cameras pan to him. When they go right, rare as that's been lately, it's his face you'll see in the promo video. He's become synonymous with Manchester United, even when United have been synonymous with chaos. So the fact that he's staying is not only a footballing decision, it's a symbolic one. And symbols matter. In an era where players change clubs as easily as changing kits on FIFA, Rashford sticking with his boyhood club, even when things are not rosy, adds a bit of old-school romanticism. You know, the kind Sir Alex used to talk about when he said things like, "This is Manchester United." Let's also talk about the PR angle. This isn't a player who disappears in the off-season to party in Ibiza and comes back looking like he ate the buffet. Rashford's image, carefully cultivated, community-focused, MB-adorned, is pristine. He's done more for hungry kids than most governments, and while his on-pitch consistency may be questioned, his off-pitch commitment never is. So if you're Richard Arnold or whoever's actually running that club these days, keeping Rashford isn't just a sporting decision. It's about brand value. You can't slap the face of Jadon Sancho on a cereal box anymore, can you? Of course, we can't mention Rashford without addressing the elephant in the room, his inconsistency. And no, not just form. We're talking about positioning, decision-making, and that strange tendency to cut inside like he's still playing under Ole. But to be fair, you could say the same about 70% of the squad. In many ways, Rashford has become a microcosm of United themselves. Flashes of brilliance, bursts of promise, let down by structure, overhyped expectations, and sometimes, just pure confusion. This makes it even more fascinating. Because his decision to stay isn't being greeted with parades or ticker tape. It's being met with skepticism. United fans, weary and cynical after a decade of Glazer gymnastics and managerial roulette, aren't easy to impress anymore. A few years ago, Rashford's loyalty would have been cause for a mural. Now, it's cause for a Twitter argument. Yeah, but is he even that good anymore? Asks one fan. Can't pass wind, let alone the ball, replies another. United Twitter. A beautiful mess. But deep down, beneath the memes and the moaning, fans know this is important. Because Rashford can be world-class. We've seen it. The 2022-23 season wasn't a fever dream, it was genuine. 30 goals across all competitions. He was cooking defenders like Gordon Ramsay on a caffeine rush. And when he plays with confidence, not to mention instruction, he's borderline unplayable. That blend of pace, power, and technique isn't something you find on the clearance rack. So here's the real question, can Manchester United unlock that Rashford again? Well, depends on who you ask. If you ask Erik ten Hag, assuming he survives beyond October, he'll probably tell you Rashford is part of the solution. That is a vital piece of the system. Although we're still not entirely sure what the system is. One week it's 4-2-3-1 with inverted wingers, the next it's just vibes and see what Bruno does. But Ten Hag has always backed Rashford publicly, and that loyalty, when reciprocated, can pay off big. If you ask the fans, they'll shrug and say we'll see. Because United fans have seen this film before. Talented players staying out of loyalty, only to be bogged down by poor coaching, bad recruitment, and the general haunted house that is Old Trafford these days. We're talking about a club where Johnny Evans started league matches in 2024. Think about that. Evans. In the year of our Lord 2024. This isn't just mismanagement. This is performance art. But if you ask Rashford, and strip away the media training, you'd probably hear something simple, I believe in myself. And why shouldn't he? He's been doubted before. Injuries, slumps, abuse, scapegoating, he's seen it all. And still he came back, over and over again. That sort of resilience isn't in the stat sheets, but it matters. Especially in a club that currently feels like it's being held together by nostalgia and overpriced contracts. Let's not pretend this story is over. Rashford staying doesn't mean happily ever after. United still have major issues, from recruitment, how many right-backs does one club need, to ownership, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the floor is yours, to coaching, Ten Hag, blink twice if you're okay. But amid all that instability, having someone like Rashford commit again is comforting. Like putting the kettle on during a thunderstorm. It means that through all the madness, there's still a bit of loyalty left in football. A bit of homegrown magic. A player who knows the club's DNA, even if he occasionally forgets where the offside line is. And in a sport increasingly run by spreadsheets and supercomputers, that means something. So here's to Marcus Rashford, staying at Manchester United. For better, for worse, in sickness, read, hamstring strains, and in health, those hot streaks where he looks like Thierry Henry's northern cousin. It might not be the fairy tale we hoped for. But it's real. It's messy. And it's very, very Manchester United. And if that doesn't deserve a like, a subscribe, and a bell tap, then what does? Now let's see if he actually scores 15 next season, or if we'll be doing this all over again come May, with Rashford in Miami colours and Phil Neville as his assistant coach. Football, eh? Never change. But, let's pause. Really pause. Because before the American transfer rumours and the imagined exodus to MLS where Rashford opens a smoothie bar called Marcus Mixes, there's this moment. This fixed point in time. The moment where he's still here. Where he's said, maybe not with fireworks or 5-paragraph letters, but with enough weight, I'm staying. That decision, on paper, is just a simple no transfer. A formality. A name not added to a Sky Sports deadline day ticker. But emotionally, it's a thunderclap inside a club that's been raining uncertainty for years. Let's imagine it. Picture Carrington that morning. Fog over the training pitch. Someone's forgotten their GPS vest. Bruno's already barking at someone, probably a mad for not tracking back in rondos. And then there's Rashford. No dramatic entrances, no slow-mo hallway walks with Kanye West playing in the background. Just boots on. Hoodie up. Quietly putting in the work. Because staying isn't just a statement. It's a risk. And make no mistake, staying with Manchester United right now is not the easy choice. Not for a player of his profile. Not when other stars are jumping ship the moment a new oil-rich suitor raises an eyebrow. Not when Twitter X wants you sold every Monday and begged for forgiveness every Sunday. And certainly not when your form's gone from PFA shortlist to checking if he's fit or just ghosting. But Rashford choosing to remain in this swirling chaos? That's grit. That's belief. Or madness. Possibly all three. But that's football, and more specifically, that's United. Because it's not just about Marcus the player, is it? It's about Marcus the symbol. He's not just the lad who scored on his debut. He's not just the winger who looks unplayable when he's got a point to prove and space to run. He's the hope. The PR armor. The Twitter thumbnail. The club's human response to "Do you even develop talent anymore?" It's the reason the club tweets his name in all caps with flame emojis after a goal, and it's why Adidas still features him front and center. He's not just staying for goals, he's staying for legacy. And in a club that's lost more of that than we care to admit, that's no small thing. And what about the dressing room? Let's go there, figuratively, not literally, because honestly we don't want to see what Maguire's done with his locker after being benched for 2 years. But let's look around. This is a dressing room that has seen names come and go at dizzying speed. You've got Casemiro, Champions League medals for days but running like his in a testimonial match. You've got Garnacho, the firebrand, the next big thing, already modelling his game on Ronaldo and his Instagram on a rapper. You've got players like McTominay, who've become cult heroes by simply not being worse than expected. And you've got Bruno, the captain, the chaos merchant, the man who'll try a 40-yard volley in a testimonial. And then, Rashford. Not the loudest. Not the flashiest anymore. But the constant. He's been through all the regimes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Ole, Ralph Gegenpress by Google Translate Rangnick, and now Ten Hag. He's played with Zlatan, and he's played with Pellistri. He's been on the left wing, the right wing, up top, and in press conferences talking about government policy. So when he says he's staying, that echoes. It echoes in the corridors, in the analysis rooms, in the hearts of academy kids who look up to him not because he's perfect, but because he's still here. Now imagine being a youngster at Carrington. You're 17, buzzing off a decent training session, and Rashford walks past. Not in a Rolls-Royce on his way to Heathrow, but in the dressing gown, boots in hand way, the guy who's still clocking in, even when the internet says he should be shipped off to Saudi for parts. That matters. More than a marquee signing. More than a 2-minute promo with sad piano music. That's real. That's culture. And speaking of culture, Rashford staying is an odd and beautiful middle finger to the player power narrative that's dominated football this last decade. He could have left. He's got the CV, the connections, the agents, the hashtags. PSG would have welcomed him with open arms and an Eiffel Tower drone show. But he didn't. Which tells us something deeper. Maybe he still sees something in this club. Something beyond the mess. Beyond the VAR controversies, the PGMOL apologies, and the endless tweets about how Lindelof is actually underrated. Maybe he sees what the rest of us, despite everything, still cling to, that Manchester United can be something again. That the badge does still mean something. Even if the people running it sometimes look like they learned football management from watching Ted Lasso out of order. And yet, this moment, this decision to stay, brings with it pressure. Because now, there's no escape route. No, well he was leaving anyway excuse. The spotlight's back. The knives are ready. The fanbase, God bless it, is loyal but brutal. Next bad performance. Should have cashed in. Next miss-sitter. He's finished. Next social media post in a bucket hat. Focus on football. But Rashford knows this. He's not naive. He's been here too long to think football fans are rational beings. This is a sport where 1 week you're a king and the next week people want you replaced by a 17-year-old from Portugal they saw in a TikTok comp. Yet he stays. And what does that say about him? Well, maybe he's stubborn. Or proud. Or both. Maybe he's got unfinished business. Maybe he's just comfortable, in the same way we all keep going to the same dodgy pub because it's our dodgy pub. Or maybe, just maybe, he believes the club will finally, somehow, figure it out. And you know what? That belief, however misguided it may seem to outsiders, is the point. Because United is still a dream factory, even when it's held together with duct tape and PR spin. Rashford isn't staying because he's guaranteed glory. He's staying because deep down, he still believes in the idea of earning it. Of fighting for it. Of making it right. And maybe that's foolish. But maybe that's the most Manchester United thing of all. Because beneath the billions, beneath the boardroom shambles, beneath the tactical spreadsheets and Opta stats, football is still a game of belief. And Marcus Rashford, for all his flaws, dips, tantrums, and moments of brilliance, believes. So for now, let's pause here. Not with a transfer. Not with a trophy. But with a choice. A commitment. A player saying, this club is still worth it. A club saying, so are you. And a fan base, somewhere between skeptical and sentimental, whispering, please prove it. A player saying, this club is still worth it. A club saying, so are you. And a fan base, somewhere between skeptical and sentimental, whispering, please prove it. And if that isn't worth another 3,000 words, what is? Let's hold there. Let's freeze the frame. Zoom in. Because this isn't just about Rashford and his choice. It's about everything that orbits around that decision. All the little cracks, nuances, layers of dust and glory that cling to a club like Manchester United in 2025. Let's unpack them one by one, slowly, methodically, the way Rashford used to unpick defences before his confidence went missing somewhere around February. To start, let's talk about expectation. No player in the current Manchester United squad shoulders as much as Rashford. Bruno takes heat, yes. Casemiro gets scrutiny, especially when he gets turned by players born after the iPhone. But Rashford, his burden is generational. He's not just expected to perform, he's expected to restore. Restore what, exactly? The old soul of United. The galloping winger. The explosive forward. The boy from the academy with pace in his boots and fire in his heart. The new Giggs, the new Ronaldo, the new Rooney, depending on which pundit is talking and how many glasses of Rioja they've had during the broadcast. Rashford isn't just a player, he's a projection. A mirror into what fans want United to be again. Fast. Fearless. Local. Loyal. That's a heavy crown, even for someone who has, at various points, worn it rather comfortably. But not lately. Lately, that crown has pinched. It's tilted. And at times, it's nearly slipped entirely. The 2023-24 season was a masterclass in frustration, endless cut-ins from the left that went nowhere, sprints that led to cul-de-sacs, body language that said, yes, I know this isn't working either. And yet, in the thick of that discontent, the decision comes, stay. Which forces the next question, what keeps him here? Is it hope? Loyalty? Stubbornness? A contract too large to replicate elsewhere? Probably all of it. But there's something deeper. A kind of identity tether. Because Rashford, for all the headlines and haircuts, has never stopped being a lad from Wythenshawe. He's not a mercenary. Not a suitcase and signing bonus footballer. He's woven into the city. Into its story. When you walk into Old Trafford, if you squint hard enough past the scaffolding and the crumbling bits, you still see echoes of the class of '92. Of Neville and Butt and Scholes and Beckham. Rashford is the only living echo left of that lineage. The final string that connects this modern, malfunctioning superclub with the beating heart of its grassroots soul. Which is why his staying hits differently. Imagine being a local kid. Wearing his boots. Getting your mum to iron your first United kit before PE class. You're not dreaming of being Bruno. You're dreaming of being Marcus. Not just because he scores goals, but because he's you. And he made it. And then stayed. And that brings us to symbolism. Football is drenched in it, even when people pretend it's not. Rashford is more than a player for United. He's a reference point. A North Star during turbulent times. When the club spirals, when transfer windows collapse, when performances nosedive, Rashford remains. He's a constant, even when he's inconsistent. A face you know, even when you wish you didn't see him on the team sheet for the third straight match after 5 stinkers. But here's the thing about symbols, they absorb pressure like sponges. And they're always one bad week away from being torn apart. So Rashford's choice to stay is also a challenge. Not just to the fans, but to himself. A silent dare. Can you carry this again? Can you be that guy? Because he was that guy, once. Let's not forget 2022-23. 30 goals. A man reborn. He looked lean, confident, unstoppable. He played like he'd remembered every insult, every doubter, every tweet about his finishing, and turned it all into momentum. You could see it in his posture, in his celebrations. He wasn't asking for love, he was demanding respect. And he got it. But football is cruel. It forgets fast. By the following year, all it took was a few mischances and a mistimed holiday for the conversation to sour. Suddenly the same fans who sang his name were crafting compilations titled, What's Happened to Rashford? Complete with sad piano music and slow-motion replays of misplaced passes. Yet through all that noise, again, he stays. Which means we have to talk about resilience. Because for all his perceived fragility, Marcus Rashford might be one of the mentally toughest players in the league. Not because he never breaks, but because he keeps coming back. Through injuries. Through abuse. Through media storms. Through being benched by managers who clearly didn't know what to do with him, he always returns. That's not weakness. That's granite. People talk about Rashford needing to toughen up. But think about what he's already endured. By 25, he'd carried the hopes of a fractured fanbase, missed a decisive penalty in a major final, been racially abused for it, fed an entire nation's children, survived Jose Mourinho's man management, and scored against Liverpool, twice. And yet, here he is. Still lacing up. Still facing the cameras. Still believing he has something to give. Now look at the club. Really look. Not the branding. Not the social media team's latest TikTok. Look at the core. Because when you do, Rashford's decision starts to feel even more insane, or noble. Or both. This isn't a club that's made it easy for anyone to stay. It's a place where systems change more frequently than the light bulbs in the press room. A place where winning a Carabao Cup feels like climbing Everest, only to find City celebrating a treble at the summit. And still, he stays. Which forces the conversation to shift. What does United owe him now? Support. Tactical clarity. A partner who complements rather than overlaps. Maybe even a manager who doesn't publicly throw him under the bus after every loss. Because loyalty in modern football is a two-way street. Rashford has offered his. Now it's the club's turn to reciprocate. It means building a structure that gets the best out of him. It means not asking him to be everything, the saviour, the sprinter, the striker, the scapegoat, all at once. It means trusting him consistently, not only when he scores. And perhaps most importantly, it means protecting him from the thing that often eats symbols alive, overexposure. Because Rashford isn't a politician. Or a messiah. Or a shield. He's a footballer. One with limitations, yes. But also one with immense power, the kind that can still ignite a stadium when channeled correctly. Which brings us back, again, to this moment. The stillness of it. The quiet strength of staying put. Of looking at the madness, the noise, the offers, the easy way out, and saying, no. This is where I'm meant to be. It's not glamorous. It doesn't trend. But it matters. And perhaps, just perhaps, it's the first step not just toward redemption, but toward reinvention. Because Rashford, the story, isn't over. It's not even close. And while staying at United may feel like doubling down on chaos, it might also be the clearest sign yet of what he values most, legacy. A legacy not built on escaping problems, but fixing them. Not on chasing trophies, but earning them. And in a football world addicted to shortcuts and spectacles, that's as rare as a coherent United board meeting. So here we stay, frozen in time. No kickoff. No goals. No headlines. Just a decision. And sometimes, that's where the real meaning lies. Because if you pause long enough, you start to notice the smaller things. The subtleties that often get lost when football moves at 100 miles per hour. The things that don't make it into the press releases or the My Decision videos soundtracked by melancholy piano chords. In this precise moment, the stillness after the decision but before the consequences, Rashford exists in a strange kind of footballing limbo. Not a hero. Not a villain. Just, present. A figure caught between the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future. But this limbo is revealing. It's in these in-between places that character is most exposed. And Rashford's presence, his choice not to flee, not to blame, not to seek a new challenge in a warmer country with tax breaks, says more than any post-match interview could. And here's something else. By staying, Rashford is not only saying yes to United, he's saying yes to scrutiny. That may sound obvious, but in today's football culture, it's almost revolutionary. Because when you stay, the critics stay too. They don't forget. They remember every misplaced pass, every dropped shoulder that leads nowhere, every time he fails to track a runner because he's adjusting his shin pad. To stay is to stand in the storm and say, I can take it. And who else, honestly, can take it? Bruno. He thrives on chaos but wilts under blame. Garnacho. Too young, too volatile. Anthony. Let's not even start. And Sancho. Well, he's currently hiding somewhere between a mirror and a motivational speaker. But Rashford, for all his dips, his overthinking, his stubborn runs into blind alleys, has always come back. That comeback instinct. It's essential. Not just to his story, but to Manchester United's current identity crisis. Because if this club has one defining trait in the post-Fergie era, it's that it's become addicted to resets. New managers, new systems, new visions, new logos, new sponsors. but almost never continuity. And Rashford? He is continuity. Not because everything about him is constant, far from it, but because he's there. A living thread that ties today's disjointed, inconsistent version of Manchester United to the raw, romantic version that fans still see in their dreams. And therein lies the contradiction. Rashford staying is both comforting and challenging. Comforting because he reminds you that United still has players who care, who aren't just passing through. Challenging because it forces you to ask, have we let him down? Let's be brutally honest, this club has not always served Rashford well. It threw him into the fire under Van Gaal, who gave him a platform but no long-term development plan. Then came Mourinho, who gave him praise but preferred parking buses to nurturing wide players. Then Ole, who gave him freedom, but without structure. Then Rangnick, who gave him confusion. Then Ten Hag, who's still trying to decide whether Rashford should hug the touchline, press high, or just magically morph into Mbappé. It's been tactical whiplash. At one point, Rashford was being asked to play on the right, a position as foreign to him as subtlety is to Roy Keane. At another, he was instructed to stay wide and isolate fullbacks, despite the fact he's always been more effective cutting inside, not standing outside like he's waiting for an Uber. He's been reinvented so many times, you half expect a new Rashford to be unveiled with each kit launch. And yet, the club kept demanding, be more decisive. Be more clinical. Be more consistent. But how can a player be consistent when the ground beneath him is constantly shifting? When his teammates change every season, when his instructions change every week, when the media narrative about him changes every match day. Still, he stayed. Still, he stays. And it's not just about resilience anymore. It's about belonging. Because some players belong to clubs in a way that transcends footballing logic. Totti at Roma. Gerrard at Liverpool. Müller at Bayern. Rashford at Manchester United. Not because of trophies. Not because of stats. But because they fit. Even when they don't always function. Even when they frustrate. Rashford fits United because he reflects it. The raw promise. The maddening inconsistency. The flashes of brilliance followed by minutes of head-scratching decisions. The constant tension between what is and what could be. And let's talk about what could be. Because despite the downturn in form, despite the tactical confusion, despite the criticism, there's still something electrifying about Rashford when he gets it right. That run, you know the one. The shoulder drop, the sudden acceleration, the defender left in a puddle of regret. That finish, low, hard, past the keeper before he's even blinked. That celebration, arms outstretched, face expressionless, like he's absorbing the chaos around him. That's the Rashford United fans cling to. And when you see that version, even fleetingly, you remember, this isn't over. Not for him. Not for the club. Not for the dream that somewhere in all this rubble, there's still a team that can build something again, not just buy it. And in this moment, this timeless pause, that belief, however irrational, still breathes. But belief needs backing. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because Marcus Rashford staying at Manchester United also means something else. The club can no longer hide behind him. He's not new anymore. Not an emerging talent. Not a youth prospect. Not a feel-good story. He's an adult. A seasoned professional. And if he falters now, it's not just on him, it's on the environment that failed to maximize him. This is the reckoning United have avoided for years. By focusing on moments instead of systems. On marketability instead of methodology. But Rashford's presence forces the issue. If he thrives next season, it will be a vindication. Not just of him, but of whatever tactical, cultural, and structural elements support him. If he fails, then it's not just Rashford's off form. It's why hasn't this club been able to develop one of its own? And United fans know this. Deep down, they see the cracks. They see how few academy graduates have truly kicked on. They see how many big signings come in and then fade into mediocrity. They see the stadium rust, the outdated recruitment model, the merry-go-round of philosophies. And Rashford? He becomes a litmus test for all of it. A player who had the talent, had the chance, had the club behind him, and still, somehow, ends up a mystery. Unless, of course, this is the turning point. Unless this moment, this frozen declaration, becomes the catalyst for something different. Not a redemption arc. That's too Hollywood. Something quieter. Something slower. A restoration. A rebuilding of confidence. Of identity. Of belief. Not just in Rashford, but in what he represents. And maybe that's why he stays. Not for the fans. Not for the money. Not even for the glory. But for the chance, however slim, to finally complete the story. To go from potential to product. From promise to proof. From flash to foundation. To not just be the face of Manchester United, but the force behind its rebirth. And in this suspended moment, before the next match, before the next mistake, before the next magic goal, all of that is still possible. Just possible enough to matter. Just possible enough to stay. There's something sacred in that phrase, isn't there? Just possible enough. Not guaranteed. Not probable. But that tiny sliver of belief, enough to keep going, enough to keep trying, enough to say yes when every instinct screams for the exit. And that's exactly where Marcus Rashford is. In that suspended breath between hope and history. In that thin, shimmering moment where the decision has been made, but the consequences haven't landed. Where the jersey still clings to his shoulders, the boots are still in the Carrington locker, the name Rashford 10 still painted proudly above his peg, untouched. This is not a signing. This is not a departure. This is not even a celebration. It's a declaration. A stubborn, quiet, imperfect declaration that says, I'm still here. And to understand the magnitude of that, we have to unpack the silence itself. Because staying is loud when it's unexpected. Staying is even louder when the reasons for leaving are so obvious, so tempting, so abundant. There's Paris, not just the city of lights, but the club that dangles prestige and paychecks in equal measure. A place where the pressure is different. Where mistakes are tolerated as long as the Instagram is good. Where domestic titles are expected, and Champions League exits are normalized with well-choreographed apologies. There's Spain, the fantasy of palm trees and positional play. Of dressing rooms filled with quiet intensity rather than tabloid chaos. Where journalists analyze football as philosophy, not a gladiatorial blood sport. Where being technical isn't a dirty word. And there's the ultimate modern temptation, the Saudi gold rush. The siren song of generational wealth, tax-free, guilt-free. No booze, no jeers, no match of the day panels dissecting your every off-the-ball decision with tired cliches and 15-second heat maps. All of that was available. Not speculation. Reality. And Rashford said no. Not with a viral video. Not with a documentary. Not even with a quote. Just with his presence. With his continued existence in that dressing room, in that community, in that deeply flawed but still strangely magical football club called Manchester United. And that presence, that choice, carries weight. Because staying means looking directly into the eye of the storm and refusing to blink. It means showing up at Carrington on a grey Tuesday morning in February after a 0-0 draw against Luton, knowing full well that your every movement will be judged, clipped, and tweeted by accounts with usernames like @TenHagOut1878. It means taking the pitch at Old Trafford when the boos come quicker than the goals, when one misplaced cross is met with groans, when one bad touch becomes a meme before the ball's even gone out. It means walking past the mural of Ferguson and knowing you're not living up to the standards he set, but walking on anyway. It means being Rashford, the boy who once lit up the league, the lad who made people believe again, and still showing up when they've forgotten what that belief felt like. That takes courage. And more than that, it takes character. Because football today is built for exits. It rewards the dramatic departure, the new challenge, the emotional farewell written in PR-approved bullet points. Players are brands. Movement is monetised. Loyalty is leverage. But staying is harder. Especially when no one expects it. Especially when many don't want it. Because let's not sugarcoat it, a sizable chunk of the Manchester United fanbase was ready to move on. Rashford, to them, was a chapter. Not the protagonist. Not the future. A reminder of a team that threatened to be great but never quite got there. And now he's here. Still. Refusing to be discarded. That alone reshapes the narrative. It turns the question from should he go, to what now? Because this moment, this standing still, now forces the club to look inward. To ask what it truly wants to be. Not in press conferences. Not in shareholder meetings. But on the pitch. In training. In purpose. Rashford is the mirror. The club's reflection. Is he inconsistent? So is the team. Is he overexposed? So is the brand. Is he caught between past glories and future ambitions? So is everything that surrounds Manchester United right now. And in that way, Rashford's decision isn't just personal. It's institutional. Existential. It tells you what kind of club Manchester United wants to be, or, at the very least, still believes it can be. A place where players still dream, not just earn. A place where careers are not just launched, but shaped. A place where someone can stay through the rough and find redemption. That redemption won't come easy. Rashford knows that. He's not naive. He's seen what this fanbase does to its own. He's watched others walk away with their legacies intact because they left at the right moment, when the applause was still ringing. He could have done the same. Preserved the myth. Protected the brand. But he stayed. And by staying, he accepts the risk that his legacy will not be wrapped in ribbons and medals, but written in resilience and scars. And that brings us to legacy. Because Rashford's won things. Not many, not the right ones, if you ask the purists, but his lifted silverware. Yet his true legacy won't be measured in medals. It'll be measured in moments. The debut goals. The injury he played through. The meals he funded. The headlines he changed. The smiles he brought back to the faces of kids who saw someone who looked like them succeed without selling out. That matters. More than we often admit. And in this moment, this pause, we can feel all of it swelling beneath the surface. The gravity of being Marcus Rashford. The burden. The beauty. The baggage. His not just staying at United. His staying in the story of United. And in doing so, he invites us all to reconsider what we think football should be. Maybe it's not always about stats. Maybe it's not always about form. Maybe it's not even about winning, not in the short term, anyway. Maybe, just maybe, it's about the refusal to abandon the struggle. The stubborn insistence that this imperfect, limping, glorious wreck of a club, is still worth the fight. Because Rashford staying is not a victory lap. It's a recommitment. To discomfort. To criticism. To potential. To the possibility, however slim, that this club, his club, still has something to offer the world that no other club can. And so, we remain here. In the hush. No whistle. No roar. Just the decision echoing through every corridor of Carrington, through every tweet, every comment thread, every whisper in the pub. His staying. Not to be comfortable. Not to be adored. But to matter. To be present. To belong. To finish what he started. And as fans, we may not agree on much. But surely we can agree on this. That kind of loyalty, in this kind of football world, is not weakness. It's defiance. And maybe, just maybe, it's the first brick in the foundation of something we've been missing all along.